Aside from the DOP, the editor is the other person in the creative team that I talk at length about the film in terms of what I want it to look like, how I want it to feel like, to give him a grasp of what the vision behind the film is. I've only worked with one editor since I started making films. Well, since Violator at least. I've only worked with one editor. And our workflow has always been that after shoots, he practically bans me from the office and he assembles the film without my interference. The good thing about it is that Lawrence, my editor, has a filmmaker's eye, and he has a very particular sense of rhythm that I like. And he's also a little bit, not just a little bit, he's also very adventurous and very playful in terms of the way he cuts a film. So that's always interesting to me, because every time, this is not bullshit, every time I sit down after the first assembly, there's always something that early on, there's always something in the cutting that I did not think of or I did not expect. There's always that one or two very nice little surprises that appear in the first assembly as early as the first assembly. So, but after that, it becomes an even more intense collaborative process, because that's when we sit down and we actually start cutting the film. It's a very complicated business to sit down and cut the film and try to find the right shape for it. Usually, we go off script. Most of the time, we go off script. And that's where the value of an editor who's as creative, who's as adventurous, and who's as willing to push the form as you are. That's where the value of an editor who's willing to push the form comes in. Because when you go off script and you're trying to bring the film somewhere more interesting than where you originally intended to take it, it's almost invaluable to have an editor who's willing to take the risk with you, or is willing to take a little adventure with you. I romanticize it a little bit too much, but that really is what happens when we start editing. So yeah, Lawrence, my editor, is also the first editor I've worked with who goes on set. And I think that's very vital in the creative process and in the filmmaking process as well. He's sort of been instrumental in certain creative decisions that made the film far better than if we didn't push through with that decision. He's been very instrumental in making creative decisions in nearly all the films that I've worked on, all the films that I've made, by being on set and telling us that, yes, we can do this, and we can do that, and we can push it there, and we can push it there. If he weren't there to reassure us that we were on the right track, we wouldn't have done it, and it would have been a lesser film. Usually, when you're starting out as a filmmaker, you sort of gravitate to the editor that's either your classmate or some friend who edits that you know and you trust. Sometimes you edit it yourself. I've worked with a lot of editors when I make commercials. I've worked with a lot of editors when I make commercials. I edit my own short films and my own installation videos with the help of my former DOP, who's also an editor. It's the difference between the editors I worked with during commercial projects and the editors I worked with on more artistic endeavors is that the editors that I get to work with have a filmmaker's eye. A lot of good editors now, I'm not sure, Lawrence didn't come from film school, but a lot of editors now who are really very good came from film school and are also directors in their own right. So that filmmaker's eye is, I think, a vital ingredient, and a sense of rhythm, a particular sense of rhythm, and a sense of adventure as well. These are the three invaluable assets that I look for in an editor, and which I find in my editor. So I'm not sure, usually when you're making films as students, you usually either edit it on your own, save money and save time, or you have a friend who edits it for you, who's really an editor. That synergy, because of the friendship and because of the trust that comes from being friends, that synergy is also important. But ultimately, you have to look for, at least as far as I'm concerned, you have to look for someone with an eye, someone with a sense of adventure, and someone with a very particular, almost unique sense of rhythm. These are the three important things I look for in an editor, at least. I look for in an editor, and which I found in my editor now. I haven't entertained the thought of working with different directors. That's also viable, it really depends on what the film is and what it asks from you. But my editor is also very versatile. We can jump from one genre to the next. We can jump from one particular tone to the next without a hitch. So I don't see myself just jumping editors for the sake of jumping editors, because I think my editor right now is very versatile. I think that's the fourth ingredient. I think that sort of versatility is important in an editor.